Welcome back to the Sales Revolution. I'm Ingrid Maynard, founder and managing director of The Sales Doctor, and I'm joined today by Mercedes Ibbett from EVT Incentive Marketing. Now, Mercedes is the managing director and owner and Site ANZ board member. So we'll find out a little bit more about that. But with over 23 years of experience in incentive strategy and incentive travel, Mercedes has led EVT Incentive Marketing since 2009, becoming a key figure in the industry in Australia. Now, celebrating its 40th anniversary this year, EVT Incentive Marketing is a specialist incentive marketing company committed to designing strategic, creative and results-driven incentive programs. And under her leadership, EVT's mission is to help businesses grow by motivating exceptional people with exceptional rewards and experiences. And Mercedes' personal mission is to help individuals and businesses shine and grow through EVT's work and opportunities for their team. Her passion is to drive industry growth and highlight the value of well-executed incentive programs and rewards in Australia. So I'm excited to say, welcome, Mercedes.
Thank you, Ingrid. Oh, what an introduction.
It is an introduction. It's a great one, though. Now, you grew up in a family where business was a big part of family life. Tell us about your mum's business and what it was like for you growing up with a mum who was a bit of a trailblazer.
Yeah, so EVT, the company that I lead, was originally my mum's company. She started it, as you said, we're turning 40 this year, so she started it in 1985 when I was just a young little thing. And really, my brother and I grew up being around business, in business, our whole kind of childhood and life. And when Mum started the company, obviously it was a time in her life where her intention was to try to create something, but she had no idea, I guess, that it would be going, 40 years later from when she started the business. Having a mum who worked and was a trailblazer in industry, especially if you think back to the 80s, to have a female starting a company in the 80s is kind of crazy. And we've always worked in really male-dominated industries. So when you kind of add those two things together, it's quite unique. And I would say that we didn't grow up in a traditional household. Like, my mum wasn't the one picking me up from school and making me lunch and being at all of the things. Like, it was an entirely different upbringing. And I had a dad that did a lot of the load so that Mum could focus on the company.
See, this is a thing that I think I'm really fascinated by, because, we become what we see.
100%.
And I just think that, this is really, really, really interesting. So having a mum who really, was unusual, and like you said, your dad did a little bit of the heavy lifting at home as well. Let's talk about it from the business perspective first. How did it shape you, do you think, as a businesswoman?
Yeah, I think it absolutely shaped me. So to your point, you can't be what you can't see. I think that, especially because I should add that I'm a mum myself. I have 2 young daughters. And I think the ability to believe that I can do those things, and I'm not going to say that I do them both particularly well at the same time, but that I can at least attempt it, comes from having a mum who was doing it, and that I'm the byproduct of that. I lived through that. I know what it's like. And to see a woman, I think one of the challenges for women in business, and I've seen it in other companies I've worked at, is that a lot of women have to kind of take on that masculinity of being quite, strong and harsh in their approach to managing people, because that's kind of the blueprint that they've had with men as leaders. And I always felt with my mum, she towed that really lovely line between, she was tough as nails, like, oh, you wouldn't want to take her on if you'd done something wrong, but she could balance that with who she was authentically herself, and she was very kind. And if you did a great job, that she was, your biggest advocate. And I truly believe that's helped me be the leader I am today, is to see that leadership in a person and know that I can be tough, but also kind, and use all those things that make women great leaders at my disposal. every day and not be afraid that I've got to pretend to be someone that I'm not in order to be a good leader.
Yeah, absolutely. So you're talking about a lot of those qualities that you now see, coming through in your own leadership style. Let's do the flip side and talk about family life. So, because I actually think sometimes children don't necessarily know what's possible, until they're introduced to things. So, when we're at high school and we go to the careers advisor and they say, well, you're good at English, so you might want to do X, Y, and Z, or, you're really good at sports, so you might want to, and because they're coming through the lens of being a teacher who can also talk about careers, they've got such a limited view of what's possible for somebody. But when you've grown up with a parent who has integrated that as part of the family's life, what did an average sort of day or week look like for you growing up with a mum who was running a business?
It wasn't that exciting generally, but I think what was very unique is that we would spend every school holiday in her office, right? So I was packing envelopes and filing when I was a kid, and I was lucky enough, there was a site inspection for a client for an incentive trip that she was like, why don't you come along with me? And I got to go with her to America. I think I was 15, 16. And it was like, actually did the site with my mum. It was like 6 dates in 8 days or something ludicrous like that, and got to actually experience that. And then we have all the benefits of if mum was overseas for an industry event, we would get to go and kind of just spend our time as a little unit of 3 while mum was off doing things. And then she'd come and join us and we could have holidays off the back of it. So we got access to a lot of great things, probably reasonably spoilt for that as well. Very high standard of accommodation in my life. But I think that what it showed my brother and I is there's a big bad world out there that we can get involved in that is exciting. And it didn't keep us just very insular in our own little area that we grew up in.
And it becomes almost normal. Like, it wasn't like you had to then imagine what it would be like for you to run a business. It became just almost like that was just part of what we do. This is how we do life as a family. We are in business. It becomes part of everyone's life. We're tacking on holidays at the end of, these amazing site inspections. I mean, that's a lot. But I'm interested in some of the conversations that you might have overheard your mum having maybe with clients that might have helped shape, even if by osmosis, the
100%.
way that you now...
Yeah, 100%. Well, it even started at the dinner table. So my parents were very upfront with us always about money and business. And I remember a salesperson, I'm sure you believe this too, once saying to me that the way people like to talk about money in business often comes from how they were brought up with money. So if they were brought up never talking about money, they find that quite intrusive. If you're in a sales meeting and you're suddenly like, so what's your budget? How much can we spend? Whereas if you've grown up always talking about money, you feel a lot more confident and comfortable to have those conversations. So we were surrounded by that every day of the week. And mum and dad would often say to us, look, we'll do these things that we can while we can, because you never know what tomorrow might bring. And that has 100% shaped the way that I approach our life and the business now, because I can see being on the other side, kind of lifting the curtain of running a company, what that means in true terms. But we would often be in the car, with my mum, and she'd have a client call her and she'd be like, quiet down. And she'd have to have a conversation with a client. I remember driving back from holidays up in Queensland and mum running through a full whip with the team on the phone in the car. Like, I heard it all, and I'm sure that by osmosis, a lot of that really sunk in, and I learned a lot without realizing that I even had, right? It was like training before it even, needed it.
Yeah, 100%. So what was the journey then from you being that child with your mum running the business?
Yeah.
Now you running the business.
Yeah, so it's a bit of a tale, and it never intended to be a family business. This is the funny thing. Like, when I always say to people, it's the most unintentional family company ever. So after high school, I studied marketing, PR and events, and there was a really big dealer conference that we were running for a client. And Mum said, look, we need extra hands on deck. Why don't you come and work for me for 3 months? You'll get great experience that you can then go and get another job. And I went, okay, cool. I'll come and work on this event. And I stayed for about 3.5 years. And I was very fortunate to work across a lot of different parts of the business. So the events and the travel, the kind of marketing comms side, the reward fulfillment side. So I got a good picture of all of the things that we do. And then being an early 20-year-old, I kind of went, I need to go and spread my wings and prove to myself that I can do this without being in a family. Because working for your mum, I think it actually comes with more pressure than not, because you have to almost prove yourself 3 times more than any other staff member, because you don't want to be the reason that you're getting the work because you're the daughter, right? You want to show people that you can do it all by yourself.
Okay.
Yes. So anyway, I left and I went and worked for a really big marketing ad agency, and then my mum got sick. So Mum got cancer and went through a few rounds of treatment, and then when it came back quite badly, Mum and Dad spoke to me and said, can you just come back into the business? Funnily enough, the same dealer conference that I'd worked on all those years previously was back again. We need someone who's done it to be able to help deliver it with the team while Mum goes through treatment. So I came back into the business in 2008. And in May 2009, my mum passed away. So I had been running, but kind of holding the business together with the team that we had. And my dad has always been involved in the company, but in the background. And so we were sitting there in May of 2009, deep in grief and going, oh, what are we going to do? Yeah. And Dad said, look, do you want to try and give it a go and run the business with me? And I went, okay, sure. And I was 25 at the time, so I knew nothing really in the grand scheme of life. I knew nothing. And that's how I became the managing director.
Yeah, I love that. And then that's how I became the managing director. And then it's almost like then the real journey begins. Yeah. But I want to come back to something that you said before, and you kind of looked at me because I was kind of just nodding quietly as you were talking. You said, when you're the daughter of the owner, you want to really prove that it's not just because you're the daughter that's got you, the deal, that you really want to prove yourself. I've actually found that that's not always the case with family members or with children of. So tell me a little bit about how you saw that, because I think that says a lot about your readiness to take on being a managing director of that company.
Yeah, without knowing it at the time, right?
Yeah, sure.
I had no idea that was going to be the outcome.
Yeah, sure.
I think that I just viewed it as me as a person. I didn't want to be seen to be getting any favours or extra privileges because I worked for Mum. And I think that was probably part of the deal. If I look back to who I was in my early 20s, that in order to work for Mum, I had to feel like I belonged there and I deserved it. And not that it was just an easy next job, because I wanted to have a big career. Whatever path I went on, I wanted to make something of, whether it was marketing or events. And to have a mum who has a company that does those two things in a really unique and fun way is very special. And I'm sure because of the way I was brought up, that was why I leant towards that type of career, no questions. But I just never wanted it to be like Mercedes is only here because she's the daughter. It was just a personal thing that I wouldn't have been able to handle.
Yeah, and I can't help but feel that that's perhaps a quality that your mum also probably had, not necessarily obviously seeing herself as the daughter because she created it herself.
Yeah.
But I suspect she also had almost something to prove. Like, the perspectives were different. But,
yeah, 100%.
That drive to prove something. So let's now dial in a little bit more into
what we do.
EVT. Yeah, exactly. EVT Incentive Marketing. A question I'm often asked is a question that I'm going to put to you now. So when do incentives work to improve sales outcomes?
Yeah, so I think to answer that, I want to do two things. First, I want to explain what we do for our clients, and then I want to talk about what a real sales incentive is in the context of how we do them, because they can mean a lot of different things. Yeah. So EVT, we're a full service incentive marketing company, as you mentioned in the intro. And what that really means is we help our clients design the strategy of how to use these really tactical, like focused marketing programs to drive performance. And that is going to mean, how do we structure it? How do we communicate it to keep it engaging? How do we brand it? And how do we reward it? So we do all of that. So we'll get a client who will come in and say, we want to improve sales and NPS. We will get to know the business. We will get on the ground as far as data, demographics, all of that kind of stuff. And we'll help them structure a program that we believe will be effective. And there's factors that come into that: budget and the reward. Rewards are really interesting. Our world is all about aspirational, tangible rewards. We're not doing cash commissions, none of that stuff. It is all about, we want stretch performance and we want to reward people at a high level for that. So within the business, we have an online system where you can earn points and then spend them against rewards, tangible experiences, that kind of thing. And then we do incentive travel, where we take top performers all around the world and create really beautiful, unique, once-in-a-lifetime experiences. And we also have a concierge reward service as well, which is for that really high-end, maybe don't want group travel, but we can literally curate any reward for someone. So whether we're setting them a motorcycle or rebuilding their kitchen, all of that as well. So it's all about really special and very customized rewards for people.
So, okay. So I mean, that sounds amazing, and I feel like signing up for one of those programs myself now. When you said about the kitchen, I went, oh, hang on a minute. But okay, I mean, that sounds amazing, but are they for, do you align them with a promotion, or are they for companies that, you know how you said about stretch performance? Yeah. So we're not talking about commissions and those ongoing stuff. So when would a company bring you in, and what's their purpose? And I know every company is different, but can you just sort of, maybe without mentioning company names necessarily, just bring this to life for us a little bit more? Because the people that are listening will be thinking, you know, I've got a team and I need them to achieve this year. They're already motivated. You know, do I need to do this in order to get them to deliver X, Y, and Z? Or when would I be bringing in Mercedes and her team to really enable us to do even more with our salespeople? Yeah,
so we're brought in, often we work within the kind of B2B space. So our clients are manufacturers of products, and they've got dealer and resellers all over the country and New Zealand that they want to go in and motivate. You can also work within sales teams, but we generally sit within that space. And they will come to us because not only do they have growth that they're after or market share that they want to be stealing off their competitors, it's also about behaviours that they need to change. So a big factor that's come in with programs in the last, you know, I'd say 7 to 8 years is, let's not just reward only sales growth. Let's make sure that we're doing sales growth the right way. So let's reward the biggest, but also the best. And that can be operational change in process. It can be NPS, so customer service experience, and tying those 2 things to 3 things or 5 things together to get your top achievers out of that.
Yeah, so I really appreciated when you said, you know, about changing sales behaviours, and, you know, it's not just about the outcome, because sometimes the outcome can really, without meaning to, drive a behaviour that is not great.
Correct.
You know, because especially when you then tie a really attractive reward to it. You know, some salespeople might kind of take shortcuts,
100%.
to get there. So I really appreciate that change in behaviour, and I think that that's very attractive. You talk about increasing market share and for a highly competitive strategy. Can you give us a specific example of a client who's come to you with a particular outcome in mind, the type of program that you put in place for them, and some of the outcomes that they were able to get?
Absolutely. And I think I'll make a point about market share before I give you examples. Market share is a really big thing in a down market, because what will happen is a client will come to us, as an example, I think during COVID was a really big time for like, do we keep these programs running or not? And fortunately for us, a lot of our clients were in essential services. So we were able to continue the programs, but where a lot of the competitors closed them down. And it's often in those down, tougher markets that if you can keep the program running, that you will actually start to steal market share, because you've got your audience going, well, if I sell more of this product the right way, I'm going to get rewarded for it. So let's go to that client. Let's focus on that. So that's where market share really comes into play in my experience. A couple of examples I'll give you. I think with incentive programs, you can look, because you asked earlier about like, are they linked to a specific promotion or are they ongoing? They can be both, to be honest. We have some clients that only want to run quite short sprint programs, 2 or 3 months. And then we have clients where you're looking at a much longer, like 1 year program that keeps rolling. The sprint programs are really effective for, we have a problem, we want to solve it. What they won't achieve is maybe solving it for a long period. You're not getting as much long-term behavioural change with a sprint as you would for a program that continues on and on and on. So a really good example, we had a client who had never run an incentive program before, and they knew they needed something to grow their market and to steal market share. And they wanted to kind of test the concept. So we put in place a 3-month incentive program with a really beautiful reward. The reward was like an incredible box at the F1 at Melbourne, all inclusive, flights, accommodation, dinner with some of the drivers, all the cool stuff. And we ran the program for 3 months, and the metrics were all around targets and like growth of sales. But we heavily commed it. So really sexy, comms to get them excited about the program, what their reward was, a lot of result reporting. So you've got to be really black and white about, if you want to achieve, this is what you've got to do. And it's competitive, right? So you want to keep the competition feeling going, like, oh, you might be close now, but someone else might have a really great month. So, keep yourself at the top of the leaderboard, that kind of thing. Strategy was really important with this program. And for them, that sprint got them a 7.6% sales growth on the same time the previous year.
Yeah, that's significant, isn't it?
Absolutely significant. And the key with these programs is if you structure them properly, they pay for themselves plus more.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. This should not be like a minus figure on your bottom line. This should be, okay, we're going to run this program properly, and the growth in sales will reward everybody, plus bring more revenue or more profit back into the business as well. Absolutely.
And I think, again, when we come back to changing behaviours and you're talking about increasing market share, I imagine that, and lockdown would have been one of those times where it would have been really easy for salespeople to just mine, old territories or old customers, the ones that are familiar, the ones that they know that they're going to get some sort of sale with, rather than perhaps, venturing into some new territory. Yeah. And so with those incentive programs, it kind of almost, I don't want to say forces them, but with a really attractive carrot,
correct,
it leads them in there. So then they develop those relationships, they develop those behaviours into, increasing, a lot of new business rather than just mining, that familiar territory.
That's right.
Yeah. So let me ask you the flip side then. When would you advise a company not to use an incentive program?
Yeah, so I think with an incentive program, you can get it so wrong and you can really disengage people, right? If you go out with a structure that hasn't been thought through, that you don't have data to consistently report on with, because that's a huge thing, right? Like, we can run an incentive program on anything as long as we have data.
Okay.
But a lot of companies go, oh, we'll just throw a program out there. We'll do, top performers, 10% growth, off and running. And it doesn't work. And it will come down to communication and brand. Like, these things have to really cut through. We live in an attention economy. Yes, you should be able to just put a reward in front of people and people go, ooh, but they have to understand the program. So how to get their attention, how to brand it, how to make it really aspirational is incredibly important. And the other point that I was going to make outside of data is picking the wrong reward. So we often joke in the office about the worst thing you can do when you're running an incentive program is ask someone to do a lot of work and give them a really underwhelming reward. So you could say to a salesperson, we want you to drive sales like 20% growth this year. And then when they get their reward points, all they can redeem is a toaster. I mean, it's not going to make them want to participate, engage, or come back again. So don't run a program if you cannot make the reward worth the effort. It's absolutely pointless. And I will often, when we go into like workshops with potential clients or even with existing clients, say, guys, that's not going to work. We need to change the structure to get you as much reward for the individuals that achieve than watering it down across, more people.
Yeah. Can it ever become an expectation from salespeople that their company is going to continuously, dangle these carrots and they're only going to work if there's a reward there?
I mean, it can, like anything, and I think that's with like commissions and everything in particular, that they become an expectation. I think where these programs should always sit is it is the above and beyond. It's not the day to day. And
good point.
And that the reward isn't cash that you can spend on everyday items, but it's something that actually adds a huge amount of value to your life. Yeah. And I think that if you sit them in that right position, then while they're always going to be a lovely to have, they don't become as much of an expectation.
That's a really good point that you've made, I think, because I can imagine that the people listening, and there'll be a lot of sales leaders in there, there'll be a lot of sales directors in there, there'll be some CFOs listening, and they'll be thinking, yeah, but, that's what targets are for. Like, that's, they've got to reach those targets anyway. So why would we, incentivize to reach those targets? But what I'm hearing you say is, yeah, okay, there's those targets, but what if you really want exceptional performance? What if you really want to raise the bar so significantly? What are you going to do to reward those people that are prepared to go above and beyond in order for it to make it worth their while?
Yeah, that's exactly right. And that's where, with salespeople in particular, getting a good sense of competition is a huge part of it, because they by nature want to be the best. And structuring your program for it, saying like, this is about exceptional, not mediocre or standard, and that you are the best of the best, the top, and that they're competing, and you're honest about that competition, that's where it works really well.
And the other thing I'm thinking that, the types of reward programs that you do in partnership with your clients, I imagine that would be a really attractive draw card in a time when salespeople are in short supply, especially those top performers. So when they're looking at a company that they want to do, perhaps is their next career move, they're going to be looking for companies who are going to significantly reward them beyond salary, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. And it's a big growing market for the industry to be looking at attraction of talent. And I actually think that's probably where the opportunity for these programs to go beyond just sales exists, because a lot of companies will have internal reward and recognition programs, but this is about that next step up from that. And I think companies are starting to realize, especially over in America, where these programs are used a lot more and talked about a lot more than they are in Australia, which I'm trying to change. They are using it for talent attraction, and it makes total sense. It's the benefit, but the key to these that is better than just like a perk, like, oh, we're going to put a table tennis table in or whatever, is that they actually bring return to the company. You only reward people if they've performed.
Yes.
And that's the difference. Like, there is something in it for both parties, and that you are able with an incentive program to show a return on investment. It's not just throwing a like, oh, let's give this a go. There's real return for the business.
Yeah, absolutely. So talk to me about the types of companies before we wrap up, and you give us some really good information about where people can reach out to you. Talk about the companies that this is perfect for, the types of organisations. Do you sort of, you talked about certain types of industries when we were talking about your mum before, you know, a lot of male-dominated industries in the early days. So, you know, if you could just maybe give us some insight into the types of companies that typically reach out to you, the types of industries, the types of salespeople profile, the size of their sales teams, and the types of products that they might be taking to market.
Yeah, so as I mentioned earlier, we do traditionally work in that kind of manufacturer, B2B, reseller, dealer space. So that is, I think, where we offer all of the value to our clients. We have a huge amount of experience in that and structuring these programs to work. Any, I guess, manufacturer that is selling through a dealer network or even a franchisee network, that kind of business is where we hit our stride. From a size perspective, it doesn't matter. I think for a program to make sense, anything over having, you know, the reach of 50 stores across Australia upwards is going to be a good place to sit with these programs. And the profile, it's all about what you want to achieve ultimately. So you've got a product, you want to break in from a market share perspective, get the conversation to be more about what you're offering over your competitors, or things are a little bit stagnant and you need some help to re-inject the focus on the product and to sell more. And that's really where I believe we can step in and help you devise the right strategy to roll it out.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. So where can companies like that reach out to you? How can they find you?
I'm everywhere. No, I'm joking. They can find me on LinkedIn. Obviously, we've got our website. They can reach out to me personally, which I'm sure we're going to provide details. One of the things that we've found to be incredibly helpful for companies, and I'm so happy to do, is to run incentive workshops. So when a company's going, I don't know if I need it, I don't know how to structure it, I can come in and take you through like a 2-hour session where we kind of go top to bottom of all the things that a program needs to work, and it turns into a real back and forth, get a good amount of your team in the room. And from that, normally I can structure a program and I get a brief from that can help go, okay, this is going to work. Or that is also where I've often said you need to get all of these things sorted before you're ready to take the next step for this program to be successful. So I'd be very happy, anyone who wants a incentive workshop, to run those. And they're really fun. They're enjoyable. We're nice people. We're nice to hang out with. So
I'll vouch for that. I'll absolutely vouch for that. You're a lovely person, and you're more importantly, or just as importantly, I should say, is, you know, you're absolutely stellar in the way that you operate your business. And I mean, that's testament to the fact that you've been running it since 2009 and it's celebrating its 40th anniversary this year. Mercedes Ibbett, it has been an absolute pleasure speaking with you. I will make sure all of your contact information is included in the show notes so that anyone who wants to reach out and find out more about how they can participate in one of those incentives workshops, what a fantastic way to find out whether this is for your business and find out, more importantly too, what it can actually do for your business. Thank you for your time today, Mercedes.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Okay, you've been listening to The Sales Revolution. I'm Ingrid Maynard. And to find out how the Sales Doctor can help your organisation to transform its revenue, growth and profit, please email me at ingrid@thesalesdoctor.com.au. Visit us on our website at www.thesalesdoctor.com.au. ibbett.com.au. I look forward to your company next episode. Bye for now.